Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tracy McBean, and I'd like permission to read a statement with regard to the Pioneer.
Go ahead.
I am a proud Pointe-Claire resident, and I am here today representing myself, Matthew Trudell, and many concerned citizens. A few weeks ago, it came to my attention that the Pioneer located at 286 Lakeshore Road had possibly been sold to a developer that has interest in tearing it down and building condos with possible commercial space. The media got a hold of this story, and thus a petition was started by Matthew Trudell in the hopes of saving the Pioneer building. The building, historically known as the Pointe-Claire Hotel, has been around since 1901. It replaced the original hotel that unfortunately burnt down in a devastating fire in May of 1900. It has changed ownerships many times over the years and became the acclaimed Pioneer in 1979. Thanks to the building's diverse history and the 2011 bylaw number PC 2787, the Pioneer was rightfully deemed a building of heritage interest. For this reason, people are wondering why the city would not be invested in protecting it at this time. Since having become public knowledge, many citizens have expressed their concerns over the potential for more condos rising up in the city. Pointe-Claire already has many new condo developments underway, and with each new building, we seem to lose more and more community space. Local musicians are saddened to be losing yet another venue where fundraising events are often held. Friends are traveling further into the city of Montreal to get together, and our young adults are losing a place close to home to have a safe night out. Furthermore, by tearing down the Pioneer, our beautiful, quaint, historical village will be losing yet another piece of its history. At this time, what the village and the citizens need is more support from the city. By developing a plan to draw in more tourists, we can revive our village. We need signage indicating the way to this historical Pointe-Claire village from Highway 20. And we need the city's dedication in preserving its history for future generations. We are so fortunate to have all these beautiful landmarks. And if we stand back and watch the Pioneer be torn down, we risk seeing more of our beautiful city follow suit in the future. In conclusion, myself, as well as close to 3,000 concerned citizens, have signed Mr. Trudell's petition, hoping and praying that our local government can and will do something to help us save the Pioneer, the building that the local government at the time deemed worthy of heritage interest not so long ago. So my question to you, Mr. Mayor and Council, is does the city have any plans to stop this project if enough citizens are opposed to it?
So here's the situation with the Pioneer. It's a privately owned business. The city has nothing to do with it. The owner put it up for sale. It's been for sale probably for the last 10 years. Nobody's decided to buy it. I believe there was maybe one potential buyer one time earlier and walked away from it. Mm-hmm. As far as the city goes, we have no involvement in what the owner of that building does with whoever they sell it to. The owner was on TV yesterday, and she's closing her doors. She's not going to keep the place open. She wants out. We have no control over that. Mm-hmm. So she has sold it to somebody. We believe we're not even sure if it's 100% sold. The promoters went on Facebook the other day and promoted a possible condo complex there, right? Yes. And you've seen it, and we were aware of it because, I mean, we're aware of the fact that they came in, they asked the type of zoning, what can be done there, so on and so forth. But we haven't even gotten to the point where there's a demolition permit on the table right now.
Is that area zoned?
Yep.
For?
It's zoned for
residential use?
It's zoned for multi-use, commercial, residential. It's in the new village code. It was in there before. Mm-hmm. And don't forget that going back in probably 2013, they did a big study in the village. and they did a lot of focus groups, and there was a lot of citizens involvement, citizen involvement, and they wanted the village revitalized. They wanted densification. They wanted people. They want more shops. All this comes from that particular plan back then, which there was many meetings and many roundtable talks and meetings at John Rennie. The Pioneer, as it stands today, it has a historical interest on it. But the original building, there's really nothing left of the original building. If you look at that building today, and if it ever does get to a demolition request and there's a demolition meeting, I'm hoping that you'll see both pictures. You'll see the picture of the 1911 building and today's building. There's nothing left. The inside has been completely gutted. Back in the 70s, because I was going there in the 70s, and they turned it into a bar salon there with a mechanical bull, and there's nothing left in the inside. There's nothing left on the outside. The building is in really bad shape, and the owner confirmed that yesterday on the CTV report that I saw. The other thing too is, don't forget, the person who bought it, if he wants it demolished, he's going to have to go out and hire somebody, a specialist in that field, that will evaluate the building, and they'll tell us if it's worthy of saving, if it can be saved, if it can't be saved. They'll have to prove to us that it is or it isn't. So it's not just us that's making that decision, but there is a process, and we're going to go through the same process for that building as we will for the Walton project as it proceeds, but we're not there yet. So I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to come, but we need him to come to us too and start the paperwork and get the process going, so we can go through all the procedures.
Is there any idea of approximate time-wise when we would know a little bit more about what's going on?
You're going to know about it when we know about it. When we know about it, I mean, if he comes in and he puts in a request, the set of exact plans that he wants and the demolition plan, there'll be a sign going up. There'll be a notice in the paper. Word will get out. It'll be on Facebook. It will be talked about, and it won't be something that'll be slipped by and nobody will know about it. The other thing is, it's great that. Everybody wants to save it, and they step up, and it has been for sale. Why hasn't somebody else bought it? You know what I mean? It's been for sale for a long time. It's not like hasn't been a secret. And the vendors decided to sell to this particular gentleman. This is what he wants to do with it. We cannot tell him, no, you can't. You have to come and go through the process.
Okay. Well, perhaps by getting the word out there a little bit more, maybe we will find somebody else.
Well, but it's sold. It's sold to a gentleman right now. There's an agreement.
Maybe something will happen.
Well, maybe.
We can always hope. My last little quick question is simply because Matthew Trudell could not be here tonight because he works. He was hoping that I could hand in this petition.
Absolutely.
And I would like to know to whom I could hand it.
You would bring it to Mr. Jacob, the greffier for the city? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donna Cameron. I've lived in Pointe-Claire my entire life. I'm from District 2, but I grew up in District 7, so I'd like to shout out to all the people for the Walton project, because I understand your plight. I'm here today actually to ask about the Pointe-Claire website. On the city's website, under the heading of Heritage, there's 13 material and natural symbols of Pointe-Claire that are listed there. Historically, and up to last week, above these symbols, there was a paragraph that read, "The materials and symbols of Pointe-Claire history preserved and developed for future generations, reflecting the values and beliefs of those who built the city through the ages." Such a statement could give the impression and assurance to a citizen that the city of Pointe-Claire actually has an interest in the preservation of these symbols of history, since it's on your website. On May 30th, I wrote an email to my councillor underlining this fact, thinking that it would be quite contradictory to demolish a historical building that you've listed on your own website with a sentence that says you are going to preserve and develop for future generations. I didn't hear back a response. Now, it's a good thing I took a screenshot of it, because if you looked at that that website today, this sentence that says preserved and developed for future generations is now gone. It's been erased. So my question to you is, why was this sentence taken away, preserved and developed for future generations? Why was it recently taken off the paragraph of heritage? And due to the removal of this sentence, does that suggest that the city of Pointe-Claire has now changed its historical collective philosophy of preserving these symbols in the last week without public consultation or without notice?
I'm not going to, I can't answer your question why it was removed. I'll get you an answer. I don't have the answer right now. I know that at one time there were some discrepancies about heritage interest and heritage protection. We did discuss that a little while ago. There was wasn't the same on one paragraph as the other. But let me look into it. And
well, I just find it interesting that I wrote an email to my counselor. And
who
then
was your counselor?
Paul.
Paul, okay.
And 2 days later, it was gone.
Okay. Let me.
So I find it. I just would like an answer of why it's gone.
Yeah. Well, I'll get you an answer, and if you can. Paul would have you have her phone. You have her phone number and email.
Yes, he's called me back
Okay.
every other time I've ever contacted him before. He's always called me back.
We'll
so
get
this
back to you tomorrow.
Okay, and I just have another question then. What is the city's view, commitment to the preservation of the symbols and the historic symbols of Pointe-Claire?
Well, I mean, I think I look, all this stuff that's protected. We're very. I mean, we have no intention of knocking down every historical building at Pointe-Claire. It was never our interest. And this one particular building in the village of Pointe-Claire, the Pioneer, just happens to be a building that is a really. I mean, there is nothing left of the original building.
It could be restored.
Well, it could be, but nobody wants to do it. Nobody stepped up to do it, and
The city was committed to preserving it. I don't understand.
Because it wasn't a protected building. It had some historical
But it was listed
interest.
on your website.
Along with the 200 buildings that have
No,
historical.
13.
Well, 13. There's another list of there's a difference between historical, protected, and old, and and this particular building has just been. It's just one of those buildings that it's too bad because the original building that was there with the balconies and the old hotel, the
I've
wraparound
seen
balcony,
the
it was an
photos.
absolutely gorgeous building.
Yeah, it
and
was
it's
a
too bad
gorgeous
that building's
building.
still not there today. But there's nothing left of that building there. There's nothing. There's really nothing left of that building, and it is sad. But in the meantime, we need to do something. We can't just leave the building there, and this gentleman or this lady has a right to sell it, and that's what she's done.
Well, it would be very nice if you could try to preserve it, because I really think that it's part of the history. It's right in the center of town. It's the biggest building in town. It's even on the website for the City of Montreal. That's the photo they show for the village of Pointe-Claire. And I just want to make my opinion very clear that I'm going
Perfect.
to continue to fight for this. Thank you.
Okay, great. And listen, before we keep on going on, I'm going to make a little statement because first, the Walton situation, there's a meeting coming up on the 14th. You're all welcome to go there and express your opinions there, okay? It really is not going to help tonight. We're well aware that you guys are interested in saving it. We're well aware. The message is clear. You need to go to that meeting, okay? For the Pioneer. We can talk about the Pioneer all we want tonight. We know that the Pioneer, there's people out there who want to save it, but until it gets to the next step where there'll be a public meeting, that's where you have to come voice your opinion. We've heard you tonight. We're aware. I think we've heard it for the last week. So what I'm going to ask is we take 2 more questions. We got hours and hours of work to go through the rest of the agenda tonight. So if we can take 2 more questions one concerning the Walton project or one concerning the Pioneer, and we're going to shut down this topic and move on, okay? On the agenda, I much appreciate that. Thank you.
Andrew Swedzinski, Pointe-Claire. Just a couple of things with regards to the Pioneer. In the first instance, Mr. Kogel, who's the promoter involved in this, went on the news and he said 2 things. First of all, it's a conditional offer to purchase, with the condition being that the city gives him his demolition permit. The second was that the city actually plans to sell the adjoining parking area which it owns to him. Okay? So, as it stands, I understand that, it's a private project, it's something of that nature. You have a process that you have to follow. But it seems to me that if the city really wanted to stop this or have any involvement, you could just say right away, we're not going to sell the adjoining land. You could just say it. Just as though, you're not allowed to divulge the specific discussions that you're having with any developer. You can also point to any building in the city and say, we're not going to allow this to be demolished because it's a landmark, it has historical value. And yeah, I understand that a lot of the Pioneer has changed. But for those of us who grew up in Pointe-Claire, it was an important place to us. Yeah, it was a hole in the wall, but it was our hole in the wall, and it was a place that was valuable to a lot of people. Now, I can't speak as eloquently as one of the former speakers just had to the past, but if you speak to the future, you know, if you're not the biggest or the richest or even the cheapest at something, the way that you distinguish yourself is through added value and branding. And what Pointe-Claire Village has is the old, unique, historical flavor of the kind of buildings that we have there right now. Now, if you turn that into condos systematically, as you know, there's one there, there's one I think Pezza Romana, there's one where Bistro Pointe-Claire is going to be, that's what the long-term planning is. Well, you know, people are not going to want to go to Existant where there's no parking, and they're not going to want to go to a version of Green Avenue that's not downtown and that has less money. And in terms of the greater city, well, you know, for the last 70 or 80 years, this has always been sold as a kind of garden city. You know, a place where you'd have a lot of green space, where you'd have a lot of parks, you'd have bigger yards, you'd have places of that nature, you'd have this historical character, and you'd have an industrial park that would help pay for it all with high commercial tax rates. For the last few years and in this urban plan, we've seen that hollowing out. We see a plan that's going to take this city within the next 10 to 20 years to 50,000 people. People will ask why there's so many traffic problems. Well, the reason there's so many traffic problems is because our road network was not meant for 50,000 people. And I have to ask, I don't think many people here want to live in a city that has no industrial park, where the villages no longer really exist, where you have high density in the middle of residential districts where there were smaller ones. And you know, I recall there was a meeting of the Heritage Society, which I attended as a member, which you attended as well, where you were asked this question at the very end of the campaign, and you said, I'm not a condo guy. Condos are not what Pointe-Claire is about. Yeah. Now, I agreed with that statement then. I still agree with it now. I would like to know whether you still agree with that statement now. That's my question.
I'm not going to deny that I'm not a condo guy. I'm not a condo guy, but there is a demand for condos. That particular building in the village, it could fit in. The building that the gentleman is looking at proposing, or he has on Deacon's website, the actual building looks more like the original building that was there in Pointe-Claire, that was there than what's there now. There's more architectural style to that building that he's proposing than the building is dilapidated now. Listen, if you want to go back to the topic about the parking lots next door, we were in negotiations with them for the parking lot because in the village code, that parking lot has been zoned to be built on. And all these ideas that came up of what can be built and what can't be built and what people want, it all came from the citizens' input in 2013 when they came up with the PPU. That's where all this stuff came from. This is what people asked for, and they adapted the plan according to the input of the citizens. So it's not something we just came up with overnight. It's something that's been in the works for years. And now it just so happens that things are falling in place. The economy's moving. Pointe-Claire seems to be buzzing, and things are coming forward. And we're dealing with it. And we're dealing with one-on-one, and we're listening to you, and we'll make decisions accordingly. All right?